If you are considering selling your house on your own, I've got some information for you on the needed paperwork for selling a house by owner, so stay tuned. I'm Jana Classy. This is my husband Paul, and we're realtors here in the Eastern Panhandle. We're still in a pretty hot market, so you may be thinking, with all the buyers out there, I can find one without a realtor, and you probably can. But the process of selling a home involves more than finding a buyer. So here's the paperwork you'll need and why you'll need it. When an offer comes in, the first document you'll want to see is a pre-approval letter from a lender. And if you aren't familiar with the lending company, be sure to check them out, especially if it's an online lender. Some lenders will issue a pre-qualification letter with very little information from the buyer. And then, as they start checking things out, discover the buyer doesn't qualify after all, and down the line, turn down the loan. Meanwhile, you have taken your house off the market, so it's been unavailable to buyers that may very well be qualified. It's really one of my pet peeves for a lender. We call the buyer agent and the lender to question how far along in the approval process the buyer has been. The best scenario is if the buyer has been approved already by underwriting. A high offer won't matter if the buyer is declined for the loan. So that's a good thing to check out. If it's a cash buyer, you want to see a proof of funds, letter from a bank or institution showing that the cash is there. Also, be sure to check out the type of loan the buyer is getting. Cash, of course, is the best. The most common loans are conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA. Conventional loans require the highest credit score and usually include a larger down payment. VA and USDA loans are zero down. FHA loans are the most convenient as far as credit score goes and require a 3.5% down payment. Next is the inspection period and type of inspection. The home inspection contingency allows a buyer to unconditionally void the contract after the home inspection. So you want to be sure that that's done as soon as possible. So if it doesn't work out, you can get your home back on the market. If a buyer requests more than 12 days for the inspection, then I think it's a good idea to counter with a shorter time period. Another thing to notice is the type of inspection. An as-is inspection with right to terminate is done for information purposes only. Take it or leave it type of thing. Regular home inspections also has the right to terminate, but it also includes a timeline for the buyer to request repairs. The inspector will inspect and issue a report on the condition of the roof, the HVAC, the foundation, electrical, plumbing, number of other observations on the house. If it's an as-is inspection, the buyer will decide if he will proceed with the contract. If it's a regular inspection and the buyer decides to proceed, he and the agent will likely write up a list of repairs they'd like to have done before settlement. Either that or sometimes request a price adjustment. In a hot seller's market like the one we're in now, the majority of home inspections are as is. And what is fairly normal in this market is an escalation clause. That will be an addendum which states that the buyer will pay X amount of dollars over any other offer up to a certain amount. If you have several offers but only one with an escalation clause, it will escalate by the specified amount over the highest offer. If you have several escalation clauses, they will escalate over each other until the highest top off is reached. And that's what some refer to as a bidding war. And I guess more accurately, it's a preset bidding war. But in order to determine the highest offer from several offers with several escalation clauses, it's important to understand how all that works. And in this market, with prices going up every month, appraisals don't always meet the offers that are coming in from buyers, especially with escalation clauses. And you know, an escalation clause reflects the price a buyer will pay if he has to in order to beat out other buyers and get the house. And that sometimes turns out to be more than what the appraisal will be. So what you'll see in some offers is that the buyer will offer to pay the difference between the escalated price and the appraised value up to a certain point. So for example, the escalated price turns out to be $250,000. The buyer offering to cover the difference up to $5,000, and the appraisal comes in at $240,000, $10,000 below contract price. So that then would leave the seller to cover the remaining difference. The seller could cover the difference by lowering the price to $245,000. He could counter and renegotiate with the buyer, and if he can't reach an agreement, he could void the contract. Another route would be to contest the appraisal. I've done that, and it usually involves submitting comparables supporting the contract price. Another document that you'll want is the final walkthrough document. A buyer will do a final check of the house to make sure everything is in the same condition and that there hasn't been any unknown damage to the property during the contract period. A document signed by the buyer stating that he checked out the home and is accepting it as is a good idea. Next is the closing date. If a buyer is paying cash, settlement can happen in as little as 10 days. If he's getting a loan, then count on 45 days usually to get to settlement. And one more thing, seller's disclosure or disclaimer is required in West Virginia home sales. If you opt to fill out the disclosure, you'll answer questions about the condition of the home. There's a form for that. If you go the disclaimer option, that's just a one-page document that asks you if you are aware of any latent defects in the property, and if so, what they are. If you occupy the property, you'll probably opt for the disclosure. If not, then the disclaimer, probably the best option. All these documents serve the purpose of avoiding future problems and possible liability. So it's a good idea to know what they are and include them if you are going the for sale by owner route. Okay. Thanks so much. We put together a guide to selling a home. If you'd like to download that, it's on our website. It has the list of documents and what to be aware of on those documents, and also a timeline for what happens after an offer is accepted. So that address is meetmeinthepanhandle.com/home-selling-guide. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and call me, got any questions, and I'll see you next week. Bye.